His knuckles brushed the shelf behind my head as he pushed me deeper into the basement storage room. Dust motes swirled around the flashlight beam he'd wedged between paint cans. Warm breath met my collarbone before sound could form a single question. I felt the plywood wall press cold through my t-shirt while his palms settled at my waist. The furnace clicked on upstairs, masking the first involuntary tremor of my voice. We moved in rhythm with that hum, like it had been rehearsing us all winter. He used to ask for permission to borrow tools, eyes darting away if our hands touched. I'd always answer with a firm, "No, not tonight," the word tasting stern, but safe. Tonight, neither of us pretended the question mattered anymore. Cardboard crunched under my heel. Christmas ornaments we never bothered to unpack. He froze, waiting to see if I'd retreat with the sound. I didn't. I angled closer, pulse knocking against the necklace clasp at my throat. My husband's laugh echoed faintly through the vents, mixed with football commentary. That distance measured how far a staircase could stretch when silence was chosen. Every muffled cheer upstairs pressed us tighter into the dim. He brushed hair off my cheek fingertips, smelling of cedar from earlier firewood. That scent always felt brotherly until heat warped it into something larger. I shut my eyes, pretending darkness came from choice, not need. Years ago, we'd repainted this room together, shoulders bumping, joking about color swatches. Back then, his grin was all apology, mine all authority. Paint drips still speckled the concrete proof of moments when closeness was innocent. He whispered my name, the full version my husband never used anymore. Sound settled heavy, filling spaces where resolve should have lived. I swallowed it like medicine past expiration, bitter and necessary. His lips found the bruise on my forearm from yesterday's grocery bags. The kiss landed gentle tasting of bottled water and late-night guilt. I exhaled, hearing the furnace cut out, leaving our breaths the only machinery. I had rehearsed refusal so many times I knew its cadence, but craving steals syllables, turns sentences to static. When I opened my mouth, nothing loyal came out. He slipped fingers beneath the hem of my sweater, slow enough to lend escape. Skin met calloused warmth, a map drawn without permission. I followed each line because it led away from the chill of being unseen. The house groaned a dryer cycle ending, or maybe footsteps. Instinct told me to push him back. Impulse told me I'd waited long enough. I let his hand settle where my heartbeat lived loudest. We had 12 stairs, one hallway, and a marriage between us, yet the only distance that mattered was the inch I failed to reclaim. He filled it with a breath that fogged my glasses, soft and destructive. My wedding ring scraped the plywood as I steadied myself. Tiny metallic cry, almost polite, almost forgotten. He stilled eyes asking if metal meant regret. I curled my fingers, hiding the proof instead of protecting it. His shoulders eased. So did the last of my boundaries. Shadows from the flashlight trembled across his jawline, like confession trying to escape. I remember every time you said no, he murmured, voice thick with leftover restraint. Tonight, I need you to tell me something real. The request felt less like a question, more like a key already turning. I answered by shifting my hips, closing the story his words had started. Cardboard buckled louder this time, but neither of us flinched. Upstairs, crowd noise swelled a touchdown or a missed tackle, irrelevant victories. As his mouth pressed to the hollow below my ear, guilt finally surfaced. It wasn't sharp. It was warm, like water someone else had boiled. Comforting enough to sink into, dangerous enough to drown. If you've ever stood in the one place you swore you'd never return to and felt relief instead of panic, you'll understand why I stayed. So tell me, does the furnace hum softer in your house, or do you hear it the way I do now? Slip your truth beside mine and meet me where the stairs end next time I speak. The next morning, sunlight hit the living room drapes, but never crossed the cold patch where I sat with coffee gone lukewarm. Steam lifted, half-hearted, vanishing before the ceiling fan could stir it. I traced circles on the mug-rim metal taste of last night, still ghosting my tongue. My husband shuffled in slippers silent against hardwood eyes, already on his phone. Stocks, he muttered, green or red boxes, caring more than we did. I nodded, letting silence answer so he wouldn't notice the bruise rising under flannel. He asked if the basement leak had stopped. I lied that it had, voice steady. He didn't look up long enough to doubt me, thumbs marching charts like soldiers. I watched his reflection in the dark TV, two of him busy elsewhere. When he left for work, I stayed at the window, counting tail lights until they blurred. Habit made me lift my hand in goodbye, even though he never looked back. Outside, air smelled of cut cedar from the firewood pile he'd stacked for cold fronts. That scent wandered through the vents at night, mixing with his aftershave and settling on my pillow. Used to feel safe, family holidays order, but now it dragged heat down my spine. I forced the window shut, glass rattling as if I could trap memory outside. Loneliness has a posture, elbows tight, shoulders forward, chin just above apology. I caught myself in the hallway mirror standing exactly that way. I straightened only to slump again when the image stayed hollow. I hauled onto one useless ritual, replaying an old voicemail from my 20th anniversary. His voice, then hopeful, rehearsed, promised forever in 43 seconds. I press play, let it run, then delete the notification and start again. The house creaked above the stairwell, heat cycling through ducts like distant applause. It reminded me of the furnace hum that hid my first surrender. That sound now lives under every doorframe, waiting for me to remember. I drifted toward the basement mug, still in hand, steam long dead. Light switch clicked, bulb buzzing to life, casting peach skin on concrete walls. Christmas ornament shards glittered where we'd crushed them, small stained glass sins. I knelt, fingertips brushing splinters of red glass shaped like holly berries. Static from the carpet hit my knuckles, snapping apology into skin. I scooped the fragments into a plastic lid, the crunch echoing a promise broken twice. Some shards carried our reflections, the boy grown bold, and the woman wilted. Tiny mirrors too sharp to keep yet too honest to ignore. I flushed them into the trash bin, metal clang like closing scripture. Upstairs, the dryer buzzer warned of finished cycles. Cloth waited warm, untended. I left it, choosing instead the crawl space door he'd once asked to help repair. Hinges squealed when I opened it. Smell of dust and forgotten toys blooming out. Plastic dinosaur lay on its side, tail snapped, teeth dulled by years. I remembered him at 10, roaring it across carpet, looking at me for validation. Validation is a currency we learn to counterfeit. I never knew how costly. Kneeling, I felt concrete chill seep through jeans, pinning me to stillness. Between storage bins, a garden glove peeked twin to the pair I lost last spring. I slid it out, stiff, dirt-etched, and found my heartbeat stubborn under fabric. Holding that glove, I whispered the question older men fear, but never ask out loud. What happens when the woman who once looked at you like everything now walks past you like nothing? The basement swallowed the echo, leaving only the furnace tick for company. I stood, glove in coat pocket, and climbed the stairs slower than habit. Kitchen clock ticked into afternoon. Sunbands crawled across linoleum like timid trespassers. I brewed fresh coffee, though the pot was still half full, craving the sound more than the drink. The phone vibrated once on the counter, his number stored without name. A single image arrived, my lost glove's mate resting on his dashboard. Under it, 4 words. Tell me it's mine. Heat flushed my cheeks before sense could object. I locked the screen but left the phone face up, daring the universe to notify. No more messages came. Desire isn't greedy, it's precise. The refrigerator motor kicked in low thrum, identical to the bug zapper's hum. That shared frequency felt like fate mocking electricity. I opened the fridge, letting cold air erase sweat I pretended was summer. Rows of leftovers stared back, casseroles, meant for 2 eaten by 1. I slammed the door harder than needed. magnet photos clattering but holding. One snapshot showed last year's barbecue, him flipping burgers, my husband laughing at the grill smoke. Their faces overlapped in glare, impossible to separate even in memory. I peeled the photo down, laid it on the counter edge, curling like a question mark. With scissors meant for coupons, I cut along my husband's outline, hands steady. The half photo left behind felt lighter, fragile, more truthful than the original. I tucked the trimmed piece into my apron pocket, beside the glove. 2 tokens of a story still writing itself beneath respectable flooring. Doorbell rang, delivery random. I ignored it, listening for a second chime that never came. Instead, the furnace clicked off, hush, beating louder than any bell. I closed my eyes, breathing in the moment power shifts before someone claims it. Evening shadows stretched like spilled ink across the walls, claiming rooms my husband would soon occupy. Routine would park itself at 7 sharp, smelling of exhaustion and onion dip. I traced the glove seam dirt, flaking under thumb pulse, matching cloth's stiff outline. When I finally moved, I set the cut photo on the hallway table face down. Let dust collect. Let time ask why. The question deserves an answer I haven't decided I owe. Streetlights hadn't yet flickered on when his pickup idled at the far end of the supermarket lot. Wind carried the bakery's sweet exhaust across cracked asphalt, sticking to my throat like frosting. I parked 2 rows away, pulse louder than the cooling engine. He stayed behind the wheel forehead, against Knuckles' dashboard glow, tracing the glove I'd returned in silence. Its partner rested in my purse, stiff with yesterday's dirt anchoring every second that followed. I stepped out first keys, trembling against my thigh with each stride. Cart corral cast long metal shadows, fencing us from commuters rushing weeknight errands. Plastic bags skittered across pavement, catching on my heel, before twisting into the dark. He met me halfway, breath forming small clouds the evening air hadn't earned. We stood arm's length apart, heads angled like strangers, discussing directions. His eyes drifted to my purse strap question, forming at the corner of a tight-set jaw. I tightened my grip, leather creaking a confession neither of us voiced. "I thought you might need these," he said, holding the glove pair by the fingertips. Light from the store marquee blinked painting dirt stains, one moment erasing them the next. I answered by opening the passenger door, invitation shaped like surrender. Inside, cab smelled of cedar shavings and stale coffee heater, ticking as it stretched. He turned off the engine, yet left accessory power radio static, humming low. That static found the same frequency as the distant bug zapper memory, folding inward. He angled toward me, elbow on seat back, waiting for permission to close remaining inches. I stared at the rearview mirror, our reflections ghosted over vacant carts and sodium glare. Seeing us together looked like someone else's story, which made it easier to watch. First, small touch. His thumb traced the bruise on my forearm, press, gentle, claiming nothing. Second, he brushed hair behind my ear, knuckle brushing earlobe static, prickling scalp. Third, his knee shifted, edging against mine, warmth radiating through denim-on-denim resistance. I inhaled, meaning to protest, exhaled instead, words dissolving into heater's dull rush. Rehearsed refusal returned, but syllables tangled with newly learned hunger. He waited, patience, shaped like patience only when victory feels certain. "I told you no for a reason," I said, voice brittle as windshield frost. He nodded once, agreement that felt like disarming a locked door with its own key. "Tell me the reason still stands," he replied. Tone low, almost reverent. I pictured my husband microwaving soup in the kitchen's blue glow spoon, clinking porcelain. Imagined him holding my half-photo edge, curling unanswered glue of old magnet weakening. Thought of cedar scent on firewood he'd never know branded my skin elsewhere. His hand covered mine, heavier than ring I'd stopped twisting hours ago. Heartbeat pulsed under his calluses, steady as lumber stacked to cure. I squeezed back. Not consent, more test, yet neither of us failed. Radio found a station low country twang, filling cab like spilled whiskey. Lyrics about second chances tasted ironic, but irony wilted beneath rhythm's pull. He turned volume down, leaving guitar echo soft enough to climb spine. "Say stop," he whispered, leaning close enough for Cedar to drown sugar bakery air. I opened my mouth. Bug zapper popped across distance, spark echoing inside ribs. Instead of stop, I said his name, three-syllable confession too intimate for market lots. He kissed the corner of my mouth, tentative, respectful of spaces I hadn't ceded. When I tilted forward, nose brushing his, the tilt became decision written in flesh. Power migrated again, neither conquering nor surrendering, just moving like shared breath. Furnace hum of his heater shut itself off, leaving silence crisp as bitten apple. In that hush, he spoke the line he'd rehearsed for years, but never dared use. "I never wanted to be your son," he murmured, words trembling against my lower lip. Admission unmoored something primal. Guilt flooded, yes, but so did clarity. My fingers threaded through his hair, tipping balance completely toward dark promise. I felt the glove pair slide from my purse and fall to floor mat forgotten. A sedan sped past headlights, sweeping cab spotlight, freezing us mid-confession. We pulled apart, breath, visible twin rivers, acknowledging sudden floodplain. Heartbeat slowed only when light receded, leaving night to stitch secrecy closed. I pressed forehead to window glass, fogging ellipse, around thoughts I couldn't frame. Reflection showed, ring hand poised mid-air, indecision cloaked as composure. He rested palm on steering wheel knuckles, whitening with restrained desire. "You should go," I said each word, scraping throat, raw, half plea, half dare. "I will," he answered, engine revving, but neither of us reached for door handles. Stillness stretched, tension taut, as seatbelt locked under sudden brake. When I finally exited, night folded around me, grocery lot, now echoing with absence. He watched until distance forced headlights on beam, swallowing glove pair at my feet. Truck pulled away, but cedar scent clung to coat lining, proof gravity had memory. Walking to my car, I scooped the gloves, dirt leaving small moons on palm creases. I tucked them in trunk with unused jumper cables, tools, kept for emergencies unnamed. Engine turned over dashboard clock, blinking 707 numbers, mirroring truth facing itself. Bug zapper crackled faintly from a house 3 streets over, barely audible through glass. Hum stitched into evening like last verse of song radio, never finished. I drove home tasting cedar and frosting sweetness and smoke, sharing the same breath. Night muffled the neighborhood. Porch lights blinked off one by one like surrender. My own porch stayed dark bulb, still shorting the excuse I'd promised myself. Inside, my husband showered water-beating tile, louder than conscience. I texted, "Light won't stay on." He answered, "On my way." 3 words quick as hammer strikes. I set phone face down, screen pulsing through tablewood. Footsteps climbed the back stairs. 15 minutes later, rubber soles quiet intent. I opened the door a sliver, just wide enough for truth to slip in. The zapper's blue glow behind him rimmed shoulders with forbidden outline. He carried no toolbox, only the glove pair cleaned, but still stained. We didn't speak. Words felt heavy, clumsy, doomed to clatter. He followed me up the main stairwell, tread by tread, silence tightening. Guest bedrooms smelled of old suitcases and lavender sachets long expired. Moonlight leaked through half-drawn curtains, painting stripes across unused quilts. I pushed the door until latch barely caught a whisper of wood on brass. He stood near the dresser mirror, reflection doubling every hesitation. I crossed the room, feeling carpet pile, bend like grass flattened by storms. When I turned, he'd moved closer, gravity skipping formalities. "I never wanted your permission," he said, voice low, fractured by need. "I wanted to be the man you remember when all the others forget." The honesty landed soft and heavy like snow that caves roofs. I reached behind, switched off the lamp. Darkness gathered, but spared our shapes. His hands found my hips, thumbs pressing where bruise met new blood. Heat bloomed through cloth gilt, warming faster than fear could cool. Breath mingled cedar, undercut by lavender, an alchemy older than vows. He tasted like wintergreen gum and unspoken seasons. I answered with silence, equal parts confession and command. He guided me backward until calves met mattress edge springs creaking a warning. Downstairs, shower cut off. Pipes groaned, then quiet husband stepping into routine. My chest compressed. He felt pulse jump, held tighter. Our mouths met, no flourish, just collision of need and recognition. Pressure deepened breath-shortening room, shrinking to skin and sound. I tugged his shirt free, cotton scraping knuckles, static snapping resolve. Fabric hit carpet cedar, scent flooding air unmasked. His palms slid beneath my sweater fingertips, tracing chill lines along ribs. I shivered, unsure if from cold or the heat chasing it. Door hinge ticked as house settled. Both of us paused mid-throb. Outside, bug zapper snapped single moth, extinguished in blue flare. The spark echoed heartbeats, then silence slapped fresh again. He whispered my name full deliberate, like sealing an envelope no one would open. I answered, with a gasp that sounded too much like yes. Hands moved lower, certainty outpacing second thoughts. Sheets rustled when we sank quilt swallowing cyclical regret. His weight pressed memories from lungs leaving only present tense. I wrapped legs around inevitability rings scraping his spine. One final hesitation hung between inhale and exhale. Then gravity finished what choices began. Heat pressure trembling merged. Whispered apologies dissolved mid-kiss. Floorboard popped beneath mattress small explosive of household doubt. He buried face in crook of my neck, breath counting ribs one confession at a time. My fingers dug into shoulder blades, mapping terrain I'd never admit owning. Every shift declared a new border. Every exhale redrew it. From hallway vent TV announcer cheered a touchdown nobody upstairs celebrated. His rhythm stuttered. Guilt pulsed. Pleasure crowded out consequences. I tightened grip, unwilling to release or relent. Blanket slid moonlight, catching sweat beads like frost on wire. We moved slower, then still breath evening into shared disbelief. Heartbeat pounded in my ears, temple to pillow drum. He stayed inside that pause forehead against mine, waiting for verdict. I opened eyes to mirror reflection, two figures blurred inseparable. For the first time seeing us together, looked honest. Downstairs, faucet ran, probably rinsing a mug my husband would set to dry. He would climb soon, towel over shoulder smelling of soap and routine. The clock on dresser read 9 to 47, digits blinking urgent red. He kissed my forehead once gentler, reverent no claim this time. We disentangled sheet, cooling fast, where bodies parted. I sat up, sweater twisted throat thick with unasked questions. He found his shirt, pulled it on, buttons trembling like newly born guilt. "I'll fix the porch tomorrow," he said, echo of earlier prophecy. I nodded, voice lost to mattress springs still humming aftermath. He opened door a crack, hallway light slicing dark into neat halves. I touched his wrist, felt pulse calmer than mine, unfair symmetry. "Leave the gloves," I whispered. He placed them on dresser, silent compliance. He slipped outdoor, easing shut, latch soft but final. I lay back, sheets cooling moonlight, now harsher interrogating. Bug zapper snapped again, outside wings, meeting wire secrets torching bright, then gone. I listened for footsteps on stairs, heard only my own blood reciting new verses. Downstairs, my husband laughed at another replay world still turning. I closed eyes, tasting cedar and lavender, wondering which scent would linger by morning. Pale morning seeped under the guest room door, spotlighting cedar scent, still woven into the quilt. I stripped the sheets in silence fabric, sliding off like skin I could not keep. Lavender sachets tumbled out, fragrance bruised by the heat of what we'd done. Bundle clutched tight, I hurried past the mirror, refusing its subpoena of reflection. Downstairs, the laundry room hummed safe in its routine of cleansing. I fed the washer, our evidence metal drum, swallowing guilt, splash by splash. Detergent's blue sweetness rose, but cedar lingered, stubborn as a whispered name. I slammed the lid knuckles, whitening as if force could drown memory. Washer lurched into motion, water churning mimic of hearts still spinning. The house yawned awake, floorboard creaks, coffee dripped my husband's slippers, finding tile. I wiped the counter twice, nerves polishing imaginary stains. He greeted me with a yawn, eyes fogged with ordinary fatigue. He asked if I slept. I lied. Yes voice, brittle yet practiced. He sniffed the air, lavender masking cedar, then shrugged at nothing odd. Routine resumed safe, as seatbelts dangerous as speed beneath them. When he left for work, engine fading down the street, silence flooded to the brim. Bug zapper cracked outside, tiny blue flash puncturing hush. That sound pinned me in place like a tack through moth wings. I grabbed the trash bag of quilt seams and marched to the garage bin. Plastic lid slammed shut, echo rattling tools he once taught me to use. Each clang spelled out yesterday, tomorrow never. In the car windows rolled up, I let air stagnate until breath fogged glass. Rearview mirror framed the house blinds closed like eyelids feigning sleep. My reflection blurred, replaced by his silhouette from last night's moonlight. I thumped steering wheel testing anger, found only pulse, repeating his name. Radio sprang on news about a local fire sirens, distant but familiar. Smoke columns on screen mirrored cedar flames, still smoldering in memory. I drove nowhere, circling blocks where no one knew my license plate. Tires hissed over wet asphalt rain, from dawn, refusing to soak in. Every turn felt like stalling destiny that waited patient at home. Parking under an elm, I revisited each decision with forensic precision. No step felt accidental. Every hesitation was an accomplice. Logic, stacked like dominoes, collapse scripted long before first touch. Phone buzzed, once image of lavender sachet, tied by glove twine. Caption read, "Smells like yesterday." I swallowed a sob, tasting detergent and cedar in equal parts. I typed 3 letters, N-O, watched them blink, then backspace to nothing. Screen dimmed. Reflection stared, eyes rimmed ruby from sleepless dawn. I pocketed the device, verdict postponed, like sentencing after plea. Back home, washer cycle clicked, final spin thump, mimicking heart at sprint. I opened lid. Steam rose, carrying lavender, sharper than before. Cedar survived, faint yet defiant, refusing absolution by water. Sheets dripped as I dragged them to drier metal, door yawning judgment, heat dial twisted to high as if temperature could cauterize truth. I pressed start, drum swallowed, fabric secrets tumbling out of reach. Bug zapper snapped again, second-winged confession in 1 hour. That spark marked the crack, where rational thought bled out. Knees buckled. I slid down pantry door tile, chilling through pajamas. Fingers dug into scalp nails, scraping useless penance across skin. A whimper escaped, half prayer, half curse, evaporating in detergent haze. Tears stalled, stuck in drought, between remorse and want. Doorbell rang, delivery truck routine, making pulse ricochet off ribs. Through peephole, only a package porch light bulb he'd promised to fix. I left it there, afraid illumination might expose more than steps. Evening loomed, sun slanting like judgment through kitchen blinds. Dryer buzzed, completed. I ignored it, letting wrinkles embed unanswered questions. Glove twin lay atop fridge, where I'd hidden it, flag of surrender yet flown. Clock ticked towards supper time, expectation unearned, yet unavoidable. I set the table, fork, knife, spoon, same order, marriage taught by rote. each utensil mirrored overhead lights slicing my face into fractured silver. Husband's car pulled in tires, crunching gravel sound older than us both. I inhaled, smoothing blouse sleeves, hiding bruise beneath cotton virtue. Door opened. He kissed my cheek, cedarless, lavender blind. Over casserole steam, he spoke of stock prices, weather odds, porch repairs. I nodded, muscles mimicking engagement, mind replaying cedar confession. Bug zapper popped a third time louder, now that dusk thickened. Fork paused mid-air. He glanced up, eyebrow-arching question. I deflected with a smile. He shrugged, unaware that every blue flash outside rewound the night. Conversation resumed, but I chewed guilt, tougher than overbaked crust. Later dishes, soaked suds, hiding fingerprints I wished scrubbed away. He tucked blanket on couch, football highlights, humming safe nostalgia. I slipped to laundry room heat from dryer ghosting hallway tiles. Opening door lavender rush, met face cedar thin, underneath echo, not shout. I pressed sheet to cheek warmth, tricking skin into thinking his palm returned. Legs gave in. I sat on floor quilt pile, cushioning collapse. Hands fisted fabric nails, snagging threads his teeth had grazed. Somewhere in duck's furnace sighed that same accomplice hum. I felt the house breathe heavier now, as if holding secrets costs oxygen. I whispered to lint-clogged air voice, shaking yet certain I can end this. Silence replied, or begin again. Both answers weighed identical, too much for bruised wrists to lift. Lavender faded, cedar persisted, proof some truths survive, rinse cycles. I pressed forehead to metal dryer, front coolness, easing fever of memory. Reflection in surface warped, merging my outline with his imagined shadow. Between thrum of furnace and far crackle of zapper, mind finally split, not into right and wrong, but into want and self-revulsion. They stared at each other across dryer drum, neither backing down. I stood folding warmed quilt, with hands that trembled like loose knobs. Sheet corners failed to align, evidence of inner tilt. I buried face in fabric, inhaling compromise that smelled of both saints and sins. When I left the room, lights stayed off, allowing darkness small victory. Hallway mirror caught my shape, edges softer, motives sharper. I touched the glass, cool reminder of bodies pressed without apology. I don't know if I want to stop words surfaced, breath-fogging reflection, or if I just want to stop hating myself for not. Mouth formed period in silence, yet sentence remained open unfinished. Rain started after midnight, drumming gutters like questions I'd silenced all day. Bedroom lamp burned low, casting puddles of yellow over the unmade quilt. My husband slept beside me, mouth slack, trust breathing steady against the storm. I kept replaying the dryer buzzer, each beep a heartbeat I'd borrowed. Lavender still clung to my skin, cedar hiding beneath like a tattoo. Guilt hovered above the bed, beating wings I pretended not to hear. A flash of headlights swept the curtains, dissolving shadows into one long stripe. I lifted the edge and saw him in the driveway, truck idling under rain. Porch bulb in his hand glowed faint orange, haloing water that ran off his hair. He stepped onto the porch screwdriver, clenched like a vow he intended to keep. Lightning traced his outline, giving him shape. My conscience could no longer blur. I watched from upstairs as he tested the socket wrists, steady face, unreadable. Front door hinges groaned. My husband's silhouette filled the hall in boxer shorts. He squinted through the peephole, wondering who fixed lights at 2 a.m. I froze mid-breath, heart-knocking glass like a trapped moth begging for dark. Downstairs, locks rattled open. The door swung a timid arc into rain-silver air. Two men faced each other, one yawning, one soaked both, calling me by silence. I counted 5 quiet seconds before my husband asked, "All good out here?" His answer came easy. "Just finishing the repair," I promised her. He lifted the glowing bulb, proof of service more than sincerity. My husband nodded, rubbed sleep from his eyes, thanked him for the favor. They talked football scores, cedar scent, mixing with rain in doorway light. I stood on the landing, unseen, holding the lavender sachet like a grenade. With every polite remark, the floor beneath me tilted closer to collapse. Then the lover's gaze lifted past my husband, locking on mine above the rail. He held it steady, unblinking power, shifting without touch or sound. A pulse surged through me, electric bright and entirely outside my will. My husband turned to follow the stare, but thunder-cracked lights flickered. In that blink, I stepped backward, retreating into shadow the storm provided. By the time bulbs steadied, he saw only empty staircase and dripping porch. Door closed, bolt sliding home like verdict deferred for lack of evidence. Footsteps padded toward kitchen. Refrigerator door hissed open for midnight milk. I gripped banister-tight lavender-bursting dust across my trembling palm. When engines faded and rain softened, I crept to a hallway mirror. Face looked older, colder, almost foreign eyes rimmed with sleepless ache. I remembered telling myself betrayal would make me feel alive. It made me other. Photo halves still lay on table, my husband's trimmed outline facing blank wood. I lifted the fragment fingers, smearing rain spots that leaked from porch draft. With one slow tear, I split his half, again edges, feathering like wounded wings. Pieces fluttered into trash beneath the gloves I'd hidden hours before. Cedar and lavender mingled in the bin scent of union nobody would name. Symbolic enough, yet the act felt smaller than the ache it was meant to heal. A floorboard behind me creaked. Husband asked if everything was okay. I answered the question he didn't ask, voice flat, just tossing old memories. He kissed my wet hair, said it was too late for sorting, unaware of double meaning. Alone again, I opened backdoor rain, now misting softer than confession. I pulled gloves from trash, set them on porch rail, palms turned heavenward. Wind lifted them limp fingers, beckoning yard lights like ghosts craving witness. I struck a match from grillbox flame, shaking between want and remorse. Cedar ignited first lavender, next smoke, spiraling sweet and sharp at once. Gloves curled inward, fabric shrinking to ash memory, unspooling in orange glow. Embers floated upward brief sparks against night, then vanished without ceremony. I realized nothing burns completely. Scent lingers, ash settles, gaps remain. Still the gesture marked a choice my heart had only whispered until now. Inside, I washed soot from fingertips, water running black, then clear. Mirror caught me again, eyes less hollow, mouth set with something like ownership. Not victory, not peace, but the weight of recognizing the monster wears my smile. Rain ceased. Porch bulb held steady illuminating soot on rail-like punctuation. I left it there reminder that light can betray as quickly as it guides. Down hall husband snored, unaware the house had breathed a different vow tonight. I climbed into bed, quilt cool sheets, lavender damp, cedar, trailing ghost steps. Hands steady for the first time, I closed my eyes against new morning's verdict. Sleep came thin, but within it question bloomed larger than any answer left. Is silence the kinder lie we tell, to keep hearts beating in their cages, or does truth once freed demand we live with doors forever unlatched?